Hey everybody, Eric Grenier here with Philippe J. Fournier for this week's episode of The Numbers. Philippe, we got 1 week to go until Budget Day. It's exciting times.
Is it though? Yeah, it's exciting times. Good morning, Eric. Good morning, everybody. Maybe it's, I don't want to say like I'm jaded, but I feel like this build up to the budget, I don't know, I get tired once the budget comes in. Plus, will we know by then if the opposition parties will support it or support it enough for it to pass? I guess I have more more interesting things to do following all the polls, because we had many polls in the past week. And looking at those polls, I think my view on whether the budget will pass next week, I think it has changed over the past few days. We'll talk about that. But Eric, where do you want to start today?
Yeah, we're going to talk about a little bit about who has an incentive to go to the polls and who doesn't. But before we get into that, we'll talk about the actual polls.
Yeah.
So we had a number of national surveys that were published over the last week. We had one that was an interesting snapshot of where things stand in the cities.
Yeah.
But those national polls, there's some consistency, some non-consistency. So we had numbers from Nanos Research, the usual Nanos Research every Tuesday comes out. It's a 4-week rolling poll, has a 2-point lead for the Liberals, 39 to 37, with the
Stable.
NDP at 13. Stable. After so much movement, it's now become the stable poll. We had one from Palace, had 41 for the Liberals, 37 for the Conservatives, 11 for the NDP, so a 4-point lead. And then one from Ecos, which we haven't heard from in a while, has a 12-point lead for the Liberals, 44 to 32 with 12 for the NDP. So does anything change? Has anything changed with your thought process with these numbers?
Well, not from those three. So as you said, Nanos 39 Liberal, 37 Conservative. That's the third straight week we have the exact same top lines, except for maybe the NDP gaining a point. So it looks like we reached a plateau in Nanos. So we'll see where it goes from there. As for Palace, the numbers are almost identical to the previous Palace data poll that was released earlier in the summer. And as for Ecos, well, I mean, there's no movement if we compare this Ecos to previous Ecos' polls, right? Basically, I looked at the numbers. It's 44 for the Liberals, basically what the party had in the April election. But they have the Conservative at 32, which is significantly lower than what other pollsters had. Ecos had 34 in September for the Conservatives, 31 in July, 32 in June. So it's flatline, basically, since the election from Ecos. Again, do not take one poll too seriously. Take a look at the polls, the trends. Ecos, even though the numbers are different, they have the same trends for months that now it's been a very stable race. So I don't think my priors changed that much from these polls. But before we get to the liaison polls of the Ontario cities, I mean, the preferred PM tracker from Nanos still has Carney well ahead of Poilievre. And we thought Poilievre was making a little comeback. He was in the low 20s for most of the summer, Eric. And now it's, I see for this morning, it's 49 for Monsieur Carney, Prime Minister, and 27 for Poilievre. So it looks like Poilievre hit a ceiling. And a 22-point lead on the preferred PM tracker is nothing to sneeze at. That's a big lead. What about you, Eric? What do you see in these numbers that caught your eye?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if there's actually that much that catches the eye with some of the polls that we've seen, because they are kind of similar. They're in the same ballpark, and we haven't really seen this. These aren't two firms, Palace and Ecos, where we see lots of consistent releases or anything like that. So it is hard to follow a trend. The NDP between 11 and 13 in these polls. That's better numbers for them, but they seem to be doing a little bit better in some of these more telephone polls, IVR or live caller, than some of the online ones.
Yeah.
And as we know, the NDP tends to underperform its own polls, so that would be an issue there. I did think that regardless of the voting intentions numbers, because, give or take a few points, it makes an important difference in terms of an electoral outcome, but it doesn't make that big of a difference when we're talking about the overall kind of accuracy of the poll, because the Ecos survey had a question about whether the opposition should vote against the budget.
Yeah.
So, you can quibble if it's really a 12-point lead or maybe it's a bit closer. But when you see these kinds of numbers, it doesn't really matter if the poll could be off by a couple points, because it only found that 27% of Canadians agreed that the opposition party should vote down the budget, 54% disagreed, and really it was only conservatives.
Yeah.
Pretty much only conservatives wanted to have an election. New Democratic voters didn't want one. Bloc voters were a bit more mixed, but they still didn't want one. Liberals didn't want one. And that's
not a surprise, though, is it?
It's not a surprise. And it's also what we expect from the House, in a way, right?
Yeah.
There's some talk that, maybe the Conservatives could try to ensure the budget doesn't fall. I really don't think that's likely to happen. So it kind of does mirror what we expect from some of the parties, except we don't really know if the NDP and the Bloc is going to follow through on maybe what their own voters want, because their own voters don't really seem to be all that keen about an election. One, because maybe they don't think their parties have a good chance of making any progress, or two, they don't really dislike the current makeup of Parliament.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, they're not happy about this makeup, but the Bloc holds the balance of power. Whether they have 30 seats or 22 doesn't make much of a difference. And as for the NDP, as we discussed this last week, and I had some reaction going my way from NDPers. They said, oh, by the way, thank you for saying this, that it could be absolutely worse. We think that the NDP hurt their floor. Well, sometimes the floor can cave in and you go even deeper in the hole. As we said last week, the NDP is closer to 3-4 seats than they are to 12. And even though there's only 7 of them, still leaderless, they hold the balance of power, which is what they want. I mean, they're not happy about the result, but they hold the balance of power in a minority parliament. But regarding that, Eric, let's talk about this liaison poll of Ontario cities. It was a big sample, like 800 respondents per cities, except for Toronto, where it was 1,000. I went into the weeds with this poll. Thank you, Liaison, for publishing that. It's very interesting to have polls of cities, right? I would like to share some impressions with you, but why don't you go first? Did you have something that when you look at these numbers, we'll go through them, but Toronto, Ottawa, Mississauga, Brampton, Hamilton, London, Kitchener, Markham, Vaughan, or Vaughan, as they say, and Windsor. Is there something that surprised you in there?
Well, what surprised me is that these numbers weren't that great for the Liberals. Because if you're looking at what they need to win to get their majority government, a lot of them are just a handful of extra seats in the GTA. And based on the results in the last election, this would suggest that the Liberals could lose seats in Brampton, that they could lose seats in Markham, that their advantage isn't that good in some other places. Not really a result in these numbers, except for maybe Toronto, where it looks like the Liberals are in a much better position than they were before. And if you have the Conservatives being able to pick up 5 to 10 seats out of these cities, which could be the case. I saw someone do a seat projection based on this only in our Discord, and it did show net gain of 9 seats for the Conservatives. That's in Ontario alone. So this would, for me, if I was Mark Carney and the Liberals, I'd be pumping the brakes. Well, not that they're pushing on the gas, but I would be concerned about an election when you see in some of the big cities where especially in the northern GTA, where that discussion about Trump and tariffs did not resonate as much as the issues that were important to that area, being crime and stuff like that, the Liberal message might not be getting through, and that they should be concerned that they could actually lose some more seats in the GTA if these kinds of numbers were replicated at the ballot box.
Could not agree more. And I'll even push a little further. If the internal polls for the Liberals, if they look like this in Ontario cities, there's no way they would jump into an election. Because because I was asked this by many journalists. The Liberals only need a handful of seats to have a majority. Yeah, by winning 44 seats in Quebec and 20 in British Columbia, which you cannot bet that it will replicate. Like, you cannot bet that it will happen again. The Liberals, you never know what can happen in a campaign, but if you had to take the over-under in the next election in Quebec, they would not, I would take the under 44 seats. And British Columbia, we mentioned it, they won 20 seats, and it was the most ever from the federal Liberals in BC. To think that they would easily hold on to all these and maybe even make a couple of games, maybe at the expense of the NDP. Maybe Vancouver Kingsway is takeable. So I'm looking at these polls, and this is a really good poll for the Conservatives. If the Conservatives also internal numbers showed this, I understand that they want to go into an election because they would probably, I don't want to say win, but it could be a complete deadlock at the federal level. And also about the NDP, Eric. I mean, these are abysmal for the NDP in Ontario. I mean, they have 0 seats in Ontario, so they can only pick up some. But I'm looking at these numbers: 21% in Hamilton, 18% in Windsor. They're not winning any seats. It's a 0, very clear. Even Kitchener. I mean, I know it's in London, like they're supposed to do well in those areas. I see 11% in London for the NDP and 7% for the Kitchener, tied with the Greens. So the NDP is not picking those up, but the Liberals are not making gains from this. So
Yeah, and I think these are interesting numbers. Just because this is an audio or visual medium, we should at least explain what these numbers are. So we got in Toronto a 22-point lead for the Liberals over the Conservatives. In Ottawa, it's a 15-point lead over the Conservatives, which is actually smaller than the last election.
Yeah, exactly.
But the only seat that the Conservatives would pick up would be Carleton. But if Poilievre's not running, who knows? Mississauga, it's a 17-point lead for the Liberals. Brampton is a 7-point lead for the Conservatives. Brampton is a city that the Liberals still managed to win. Hamilton is a 1-point lead for the Liberals. It's more or less a tie. It's a 3-point lead in London for the Liberals. Again, nearly a tie. 1-point lead for the Conservatives in Kitchener. A 9-point lead for the Conservatives in Markham. A 6-point lead in Vaughan, and an 8-point lead in Windsor. So it does show that these races, a lot of them are close.
Yeah.
But in the last election, the Liberals tended to be on top of these races, and now in some of them they're behind. So it is just one poll, and we don't get this kind of granular numbers very often. So we can't really corroborate them with anything else. But it does kind of give us an indication that in some of these key battlegrounds, it could be a little bit rough for the Liberals.
In short, if the budget doesn't pass and we go into an election, it's not implausible that Mark Carney is Prime Minister for a year, and that's it. One and done, right?
Hey, a 5-week campaign, anything can happen, really.
That's true.
If you're risking your government on that, that's a big risk, which brings us to our next little segment we're going to do here. We're going to go through each of the 4 parties. And we're going to give them a rating 0 to 10 on whether they should want to go to an election. And we're really only talking electorally in this kind of thing.
Okay.
And so if it's a 10, it's a guarantee, slam dunk, that they're going to be voting against that budget because they want an election. If it's a 0, they will do everything in their power to avoid an election. Do you want to start at the top or the bottom?
Start at the bottom.
Okay.
NDP. So, well, I think I played my hands already. If the NDP, all 7 of them, vote against the budget, they better pray that some Conservatives or some Bloc voters are out sick that day. But there's also a little thing additional. Chantal Hébert mentioned this, I think it was on Radio-Canada, that you can now vote remotely. And so the excuse that, I have to be at the dentist or I have to take my daughter to prom or whatever it is, the excuse that you would have to not be there for the vote, you can vote remotely now. And so if you skip that vote, it will be pretty obvious. You will not have a good excuse unless you have something like a huge drama in your family or something, like a death or something.
Also to point out, though,
yeah.
The other parties would need to at least signal to the Liberals that they intend to not defeat the government by abstentions or this kind of thing. Because if the Liberals want to go to an election, if you have 3 party leaders who go up into the foyer and say, we're going to vote against this, Carney doesn't have to wait for the vote. He can go to the GG and say, look, none of these parties are supporting us. Let's just go to a campaign. Why wait for the vote? So that's another little thing here, right? So if the NDP is like, don't worry, we'll find 3 people, 4 people not to vote. They don't tell the Liberals that. The Liberals might not, they might take advantage of if they wanted to go. That's, of course, the thing. But anyway,
who would blink first? Who would blink first? That's the thing. So I would say, what's the scale again? 0 doesn't want election, 10 absolutely want ones. I would say the NDP is a 1 or 2. I just they don't have a leader. They have a race right now. Their numbers are awful in Ontario. They're not that great elsewhere in the country. We have the best poll that they have is Nanos and Palace around 12-13%, which is still low. And the others, we saw Léger 3 weeks ago, and Abacus 6 and 7%, which is, the floor. So I cannot see the NDP being eager to have an election anytime soon.
Yeah, to me it has to be maybe not a 0. They could maybe convince themselves that they can find the 5 extra seats they need.
Yeah, but it can't be worse. Yeah.
It could be. To me, it's a 1. The party, if they do regain official party status. But lose balance of power or whatever. And if they only squeak by with 12 seats and they have another costly campaign, I'm not sure that's a much better outcome than waiting a year when you have a leader in place and maybe you're in a bit of better shape. Like the fact they don't have a leader is a bit of a problem. What do you do in that case? Do you just have Don Davies be the leader in an election campaign? Does anybody have any idea what that would be like? Do you rush up the leadership race to choose someone very quickly? Probably not a great outcome. For the NDP, the hope that maybe they find those 5 extra seats seems like I think for a lot of Canadians, it would be the least. It'd be hard to make the argument that the country needs to go to an election to give the NDP 5 more seats. We talked about the voters and whether their voters want to go to a campaign. The average NDP voter likes the party, but probably doesn't care that much that they have official party status or not, right? Their priorities are going to be their own life, who's the government, things like that. So I think for the NDP, if they think that they'll see some of these polls where they're at 12 and 13 and say, all right, let's go, I think that would be a big mistake for them.
All right. I agree. Bloc Québécois now.
I was thinking about this one. Because for me, it's if it's 5, it's 50-50, right? They could go either way. If it's 6, it means that they have more reason to go to a campaign than less. For me, I think if I had to say someone has the most incentive to go, it would be the Bloc. And I think I'd still only put them at a 4.5 or a 5. I can't give them much more than that because the Bloc, in all likelihood, they win a few more seats, or maybe they get the same number of seats. The odds of a minority still remain pretty high because of the fact that the Bloc could win 25 seats.
Yeah.
And if they don't go now, they'll be a little bit hamstrung in 2026, right? They won't want to have the government fall in that year because they don't want to screw up the provincial election. They don't want to have to fight for volunteers and donors with the Parti Québécois when the PQ is going to be getting most of those next year. So in a way, the Bloc kind of looks at it as they could look at it, that if it's not 2025, it's got to be 2027 or later. And so to me, I could see them saying that, let's go now, why not? Organizationally, they don't need as much money as the other parties to run a campaign. They can afford a campaign. They'd probably do okay. And then they'd be all right for another 2 years. And then the next election maybe is in the context of a PQ government. And maybe that's good or bad for the Bloc. I don't know. But yeah, I think I'm talking myself into a 5. I'll give them a 5.
Okay, so right in the middle. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to go with 7. Okay, so the Bloc Québécois, did not fare as bad as many people think. They had 28% of the vote, which was lower, but they survived what was, in Quebec, a liberal wave that we hadn't seen in a long time. Again, 44 seats for the Liberals, the most since 1980. And so, you make good points. Like the financing in an election year in Quebec may be not a good idea, but I don't think the Bloc cares about that, and neither does the PQ. I think for M. Blanchet, he thinks he can do better. He's a good campaigner. He has this, the easiest campaign. He doesn't have to fly over the country. He just takes on a bus around Quebec. He likes to campaign. He really likes it. It shows. He was good in the debate as well. And in his mind, maybe if Pierre Poilievre becomes Prime Minister, maybe that helps the PQ next year. I don't want to say that it's not a correlation. It's not a straight line. There are many, forks ahead. But basically my answer is I don't think the Bloc cares whether we go into an election or not, because their numbers are decent. I don't think they would do worse. If the federal government is not stable next year, that could have repercussions for the provincial election. So I'm talking myself into a 7.5 or an 8 maybe. So the highest of I can tell you the highest of all the parties. So
the one counter I'd make for the Bloc is that more than any of the other parties, they are there to broker things for Quebec and broker things for their voters in a more explicit way than some of the other parties.
That's true.
So anytime that they can actually do that proves or makes the argument for their continued place in politics, right? People always ask, even in Quebec, what's the point of the Bloc? When they do that, they prove their point. So to me, that would be the counter incentive to actually try to extract something from the government to prove that there's a good reason to send Bloc MPs to Parliament. If not, then then that argument maybe gets a bit stronger. But anyway, that would be a consideration. But okay, we're 5 to 7.5, 5 to 8. But we both talked ourselves into more likely, which is interesting. All right, the Conservatives. I almost think that we need to split this between the Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre. I think they have two different incentives here.
Oh, okay. Okay, go ahead. I'm listening.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's been a rough couple of weeks for Pierre Poilievre. It's clear that there is some leadership turmoil, some dissent bubbling under the surface. Are the members upset? Probably not. But there does seem to be some discontent within caucus, within people that in the conservative circles. I don't think that means he loses his leadership review or anything like that, but it does mean it is a tougher time. And it would shut up all the critics and get everybody to get in line because it's an election if there was a campaign.
Yeah.
For Pierre Poilievre's own career, a campaign now might be better than not, though it is also risky. If he loses the campaign, then he's done. If the election's in 2027, when the economy might be doing worse and he's in a good position to become prime minister, maybe that's a good reason to stick around. Anyway, I do think that there might be some push and pull between those two. But out of them, I don't think now is the right time for the Conservatives. So for me, I'd say it's like a 3.
Oh, really? Huh?
The party can go to an election. They'd have a decent shot of winning. They'd have a decent shot of losing. They'd have a decent shot of being the official opposition against the majority government. But I feel like the timing will get better the longer they wait. Well, maybe not the longer they wait, but I think that there's a higher chance that there'll be more of a reason for people to swing away from the Liberals in a year or two than there is now. I don't think that we're not seeing it in the polls that a lot of people are giving up on Carney or the Liberals. So why would they do it in the course of a campaign when it's a leader who's not that popular? Is he going to really be successful at making the case? Why not wait until voters have turned against the Liberals rather than when you have to make the case for them to turn against the Liberals? So for me, I'd say now is not the time. They can still go. They'd probably be fine-ish. But for me, it would just be a 3.
Okay, it would be a 3, but what would you say Pierre Poilievre's numbers is? Would be higher or lower?
I think higher. I think he'd be more like 3. I think he'd be like 4. I think the case is still that he has a better chance of being a prime minister the longer we wait until the next election.
Well, okay, so not that we planned this, because you put that in the outline and we didn't talk about it. I disagree with you. You are wrong, my friend. No, I disagree with you. I think thing is, the Trump antics we know are gonna last many times. Like, he's not gonna calm down. That's what he is. That's who he is. He's a maniac, right? And that could help the Liberals. It could, not all the time, but it could. I think for Poilievre, the risk is if he goes into an election, let's say early December after the budget, and he loses again, who cares what he gets on that leadership vote? He will have lost twice. He's done, right? He's done. There's no way he's coming back for a third time, unless. But for the Conservatives, their numbers are really good. And I think the liberal shtick of selling the elbows up, that worked. And I think the feeling is still there in the country, but it's not as strong as it was last year. And so, again, when you look at the results for the Liberals, I think it's as good as it could have gotten. Unless Ontario moves. And if we look at these numbers, Ontario has either not moved or moved a little bit towards the Conservatives. And let's not forget that the only really polling error in the election last April was in Ontario. I had 10 more seats for the Liberals that were all toss-ups, but they all went to the Conservatives. And so the Conservatives could win if we go into the election this year. And I think Poilievre would jump on that because he says, well, if I lose anyway, I'm done. So I think we disagree on the timing. Is it true that the longer they wait in this time period, the Conservatives could bounce back? They could, but Poilievre's numbers are not getting any better. I don't see people. I mean, he's not changed. He's not become more moderate. He's not, so he's gonna win or lose by being himself like this. I would give the Conservatives like a 7 to go into an election. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I mean, I don't disagree, but I just think that it's risky when you're not in that much better of a position than you were in April. If anything, you were in a better position in the last week of that campaign than you are as the party now, right? So,
yeah,
I don't know, but I can see the case you're making. To me, it's just that maybe next fall is better, or
next fall is Quebec
maybe
election.
Not. Yeah. Well, not. You know what? I don't know if. Well, the election though is in October, and if the budget comes
5th.
again in November,
that's true.
So possibly it would be after the Quebec election. And you know what? Maybe the Poilievre Conservatives don't mind if Liberal volunteers and Bloc volunteers have just spent the last couple of weeks on the campaign trail. They're volunteers, probably pretty enthusiastic or not all that present anyway. It doesn't matter.
That's
Quebec's
fair.
not important to the Conservatives. So anyway, interesting. Okay, the Liberals.
Should I go
Now
first?
they have two options: engineer a defeat by making sure the budget doesn't pass, just laying it all. Well, I guess they have three options: laying it all out on the table and just seeing what happens, or 3, preemptively, just more or less saying, "Look, no one's saying they're going to vote for this. Screw it. Let's go to a campaign." So what do they want?
Well, I'm not sure what they want. Maybe their internals are better than what we see right now. I would give the Liberals incentive to go into election like a 2 or a 3. I would say it's low. Could they grab that majority by the skin of their teeth? Yes, they could. That's not the most likely scenario right now. Yes, it's true that Poilievre's numbers are not getting any better, but that Conservative brand is still strong, and it's stronger than the Liberal brand, for sure, according to the numbers. So I just, if they engineer their own defeat, like, it's possible that a fraction of their voters are not too happy with it, and that would hurt their chances because they would need every single vote to come back. What about you, Eric?
I'm going to give them a little bit higher. I'm going to give them a bit higher than the Conservatives. I know that sounds strange, but I'm going to give them a 4. But that is predicated on the opposition defeating them and not them being too transparent with having, a budget that was meant to be defeated and this kind of thing.
Yes.
Because I do think there is a chance that if we do get an election, the second one in a year, the first time that's happened in Canadian history, federal, and it would be the shortest period between elections ever. I looked it up. Canadians might be a little bit upset about that because what we look at the public opinion polling, people aren't really changing their minds yet.
No.
Right?
I agree.
So in all likelihood, the result today, if the vote happened exactly today, no campaign, it's just go out and vote, result could be more or less identical, right? Yeah. And I don't think Canadians would be all that appreciative of the fact that they have to reaffirm what they just did a few months ago when their views haven't changed yet. So I do think there could be a chance for a blowback that could boost the Liberals. Especially if they're making the case like, look, we can't go into an election every 6 months. Give us a majority so that we can deal with Trump, and then, that'll be that. I think that could work. It's a tough message to have for 5 weeks.
Yeah.
It's a good message in week 1. It's a tough message in week 5. But I just think there's too many wild cards. Trump is a huge wild card. The relationship with Ford seems to be a little bit on the rocks right now, maybe. I mean, they're saying that no, yes or no, we didn't look at the ad. Yes, you did. I don't know. Maybe that's a bit of a wild card. Carney, I didn't think was a great campaigner. He wasn't awful or anything, but he wasn't. Yeah. He kind of lost steam by the end. So I think that they would have more risk, more downside. There's more of a chance that they lose seats, they lose government, than there is that they gain the majority. But if what I said before is true, that the longer the Conservatives wait, the better their chances get. The longer the Liberals wait, the worse their chances get. Maybe this year's their high watermark for now, right? If they go in 26 or 27, they could do a lot worse. So I could see them talking themselves into it, but I think overall the risk is just too great. I think that they should. I think every party probably should
take a chamomile.
Give everybody a break for a year.
What about us? Do we want an election? What's our number? I'd say 5. I'd be okay.
Yeah?
So it'd be a bit much, but I'll be okay. It's just that it's going to be a winter election. Like December, we have snow sometimes in Montreal, in many places in the country. I don't know. I don't like winter elections, but it's okay.
Well, I mean, and if we look at just that Ecos poll, Canadians seem to be at a 2 or a 3. So
That's right.
maybe that's what matters. All right, let's move to some provincial stuff. One in British Columbia. There was a poll by the Angus Reid Institute, which is a little bit of a narrative buster recently, because we saw an Abacus poll last week that had a 7-point lead for the NDP. Now we have the Conservatives at 41, the NDP at 40, the Greens at 11, one BC at 5. Though the regionals do not really suggest this would be a good set of numbers for the Conservatives.
Yeah. I mean, are you surprised by this, though? Because, yes, there's a lot of turmoil in the BC Conservative, but money voters don't care about this stuff. We see that Mr. Rustad really doesn't have good numbers, but it's also plausible that it's been going on for so long, the turmoil inside the BC Conservatives. Perhaps even the voters are saying, well, there's no way Rustad's going to be there. I'm still going to vote Conservative either way. And also, since there's no, I don't want to say centrist, but there's no liberals anymore. There's that center BC that's getting 1%. I really don't think that if you are a right-of-center conservative voter in BC, you look at the state of your party and you say, you know what, I'll vote NDP now. It's a big of a step to take, right? So I'm not really surprised by this. The regionals are still pretty good for the NDP. Like the NDP would almost sweep Vancouver with the numbers we had. The Metro Vancouver number was 49 for the NDP and 33 for the Conservatives. Perhaps not a sweep, but a really good performance. What I noticed, and I know the sample size is small from the Angus Reid Institute here, but the BC NDP did okay in the interior last year. These numbers right now, they didn't win the vote, but they did okay. These numbers, 55 Conservative, 28 NDP. So that would be pretty blue if there was an election right now, and we know how close the result was last year. What about you, Eric? What do you see here?
I think the importance of the brand is pretty stark here, because as you said, 41% for the Conservatives, and a lot of the voters probably just like, well, I might not be happy with what's happening within the party, but I still have to choose, and out of the choices, I'd still go with the Conservatives. That's what a lot of the voters would be saying, and I'm not just pulling that out of my behind. That's what the numbers actually suggest, because I found these numbers remarkable. John Rustad has a 24% favorability rating, 64% unfavorability. Yeah. And among voters who voted for the Conservative Party last year, so not people who are currently voting for the party, but people who voted for them last year, his unfavorable rating is still 38%.
That's high. Yeah,
that's high. 2 out of every 5 Conservative voters are like, I don't like this guy. And then the question was, should he resign or stay on to fight his detractors? Among conservative voters, current conservative voters, 41% said resign, 25% said stay.
Wow.
The Conservative Party is 41% support. Only a quarter of those voters actually want John Rustad to stay as leader of the party. These are insane. To me, these are damning results that suggest that if he goes, Conservatives go up 5 points, like that. And I mean, if we see, and I'm sure probably has already happened because they've done it before, if they put out a tweet saying how, look, they're winning, they're up by 1 point, boy, these are actually good numbers for the BC Conservative Party.
Yep.
Awful numbers for BC Conservative leader John Rustad.
Yeah. And also, I mean, we should mention the one BC, the little party that broke off from the Conservatives. They're at 5% in that poll. I believe that's the highest we've seen. I mean, I list all the polls. Unless I missed one, there was no other. There was no higher.
Up to
number.
now, they've been 1% BC.
You would think, yeah, exactly. But you would think if Rustad goes and is replaced by somebody more likable, those voters would probably come back, and then we have a net advantage for the BC Conservatives. So I agree, yeah.
We'll finish quickly with some numbers from Ontario. We just missed them. They came out just after our last pod. It was from Abacus Data. Same kind of numbers we've seen elsewhere, 51% for the PCs, 25% for the Liberals, 15% for the NDP. But there was also some news that is important for nerds like us. The PC government is going to get rid of the fixed election date law, revert it to just the constitutional rules that it has to be every 5 years. They're going to keep the per vote subsidy in place, but they're increasing the contribution limit to $5,000. What do you think about the fact that there's no more fixed election dates in Ontario?
Well, it was already a suggestion. I don't know why they're removing this. Ford went early and he did not pay a price for it. And you know what? In 2-3 years, he could go early again and not pay a price for it. Which is strange because I remember when Nova Scotia, when Monsieur Houston came in, he won his first victory, he implemented the fixed election date, and I think that was the last province that did not have one. So, okay, now all 10 provinces have a law that suggests an election date, and Ontario is going against that? Like, you don't need... That law is just a suggestion. Why would you remove it if you don't need to remove it? I don't know. I find it weird, but... Okay, so we won't have time to prepare. We won't have to be able to say, well, okay, in June 27, Ontario's going to the polls. We will just not know. It doesn't change anything, though, does it?
Well, no, because we were prepared for this election.
Yeah, we were.
It was telegraphed. Surprise.
Yeah,
it ends up being telegraphed so much that it doesn't really matter, and I don't think it matters too much for the other parties. Generally speaking, I'm in favor of fixed election date laws. And I'm also in favor of making them suggestive. I think that's fine. I think it's good that we set an expectation of when the dates are. And if government in place decides to change it, then voters can decide if that is a thing that they want to punish them for. But to remove it, I think it's just maybe a statement that, if we didn't follow it last time, you don't care, then maybe you don't care at all. So we'll just remove it. I've seen some people talk a little overheated language that this is somehow an attempt to stay on power for 5 years. Folks, this is the way it's been for all of the last 157 years or 58 years, except for the last 15. This is how the country has operated for a long time. And it doesn't actually change anything. No, the only thing it actually changes is what that fixed date is. Yeah. One of the interesting kind of add-ons to it is that because they got rid of the fixed election date law, they also got rid of the limit on pre-writ spending. Because when you knew that the election was going to be on a certain day, you could say that we'd put a limit for the 6 months before it or whatever. They got rid of that. Again, you could say that's to the advantage of the PCs, but it also still allows third parties like unions and other organizations to spend as much as they want in the run-up to an election. So anyway, it's not a dictatorial move, but it does seem to be a little bit of a power move to say, you know what? We're just getting rid of this thing since we ignored it last time.
Let me ask you this, because I'm racking my brains right now. So, since provinces have implemented fixed election date laws, many of them went early.
Yep.
None of them went late, right? I don't remember one that says there's supposed to be an election right now, but we'll go over that and we'll do it in 6 months. I don't think so. Maybe that it is a way to say, well, the mandate is 5 years. That's what it's been since Confederation, as you mentioned. So it's just, I think it's a strange move, but maybe it's not that big of a change. So
did anybody delay an election because of the pandemic? I feel like maybe someone did.
Maybe Newfoundland. Newfoundland was a minority. No, that's right. They were a minority.
I don't think anybody delayed. Anyway, correct us if we're wrong, but we're getting aged and we don't remember these things. All right, you said you had a short quiz this week, and also that it was a surprise.
Yes, that's right. Okay, so I have a very busy week this week, Eric in media. Of course, doing this is my priority. Everything else is just noise, right? But in Quebec, we've been talking for the past 2-3 weeks, and we will talk about this week, the 30th anniversary of the 1995 referendum. It's been pretty big, and I have many interviews to give today, and I'll be on Radio-Canada and other media on Wednesday and Thursday to talk about this. And so, why not give you a little 1995 Quebec referendum quiz?
Oh, okay.
So, how well do you know these results, my friend? Is that something that you are aware of, or you're just maybe lowering the bar?
It's something I am aware of.
Okay, so I know it's very Quebec-centric, but it is an anniversary, and it's not just any anniversary. Like, I remember the 25th anniversary of the referendum in 2020. We were in the middle of the pandemic, and the CAQ seemed invincible, and the PQ was going nowhere. Now we see the Parti Québécois in first place in the polls. Monsieur Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, the PQ leader, has been adamant. Like in interviews, he's been asked, will you walk this back if the numbers don't look good? And he says, nous ne reculerons pas. We will not back down. So a referendum is coming if the PQ is winning. And that's not a scare tactic. It's just PQ leader words. So that's why I think this anniversary is special. So I have 6 trivia questions on the 1995 referendum. Gold is 5, silver is 4, bronze is 3, and shame is below 3. Like last week, you have 2 lifelines for additional hints. If you ask for a lifeline and you get the right answer, you keep it. If you don't, you lose it. Is that fair to you?
That sounds fair.
Okay, let's start. So 6 questions. Number 1, Eric. According to the official figures of Élections Québec, what was the turnout of the 1995 Quebec referendum within a 0.5 percentage point? You have to go into the decimals now. So what was the turnout? You remember that it was very high. It's been talked
I don't think your hint's going to be very useful. So I think it's
the highest of any vote in Canada, but I did not check that. But it's among the highest. So within
I think I'm going to take
point.
a guess because I can't imagine what your hint is going to be.
Okay.
What's between 92 and 94? That's not a help. That's not going to do that.
Okay.
I feel it was around 94. That seems high, though. I'm going to say it was around 94. 93.5.
What is your final answer, my friend?
Which one's correct? 93.5.
The turnout of the referendum was 93.52.
Yes! Oh, my goodness.
Which is insane when you think about it. It's just insanely high. Yeah, people showed up for that referendum. So, okay, you got it.
I got it. I was pretty close.
You were pretty close, yes. Okay. Number 2, Eric. The no side won the province-wide vote, as we all know, with 50.58%. But the yes side won the most electoral districts. Now, back then there were 125 districts, as many as today. They were not exactly the same, obviously. But out of the 125 districts at the National Assembly at the time, how many of them voted majority for yes side? How many ridings did the yes side win? And you have to give me within 1. Plus or minus
within
1.
In the 98 election, it was more or less a tie between the two parties, but Bouchard and lost. The PQ lost, but Bouchard had.
That's the popular vote. Yeah.
He had lost the popular vote, but he had won like 76 seats. So I'm guessing it's somewhere around there. But I'll take your hint.
Okay, the number is higher than the CAQ result in 2018, but lower than the CAQ result in 2022.
They won 90 seats, and then in the first one they won 70 something. That's not much help. I'm going to say it was 79.
It was 80.
Yes.
So you got it within 1. That was really close. So they won 80 seats to 45. But the 45 that voted majority no really voted no. So that's why the no side won by 0.5 point.
Also, might be why the initial Parti Québécois position was that if a majority of MNAs were elected that supported independence, that they could start that process. And it was René Lévesque that changed that eventually. Yeah. I don't think that would have been seen as a particularly legitimate approach. But anyway.
Neither would it today, I think. Okay, you're 2 for 2. Going well. Okay. Eric, number 3. Here are 4 ridings that voted yes in 1995. Which of these 4 had the highest share of the yes vote? Chicoutimi, Joliette, Matane, and Matapédia. Because back then there were 2 ridings. So Chicoutimi, Joliette, Matane, Matapédia all voted a majority yes in 1995. Which one was the highest?
I think you're partially trying to trick me with Matane Matapédia because that is the PQ stronghold right now. Chicoutimi was super high, but I wonder if it actually was Metapedia. I don't think it was Matan. Certainly wasn't Joliette.
You still have your 2 lifelines, I'm saying.
You're right. I'll take a lifeline.
Okay, so I will remove from these choices the 2 lowest of the 4.
Okay.
And what you have left is Chicoutimi or Metapedia.
Oh. I think it was... Because I think the Lac Saint-Jean area had some of the highest results, but I don't know if Chicoutimi actually had the highest. I think it was Metapedia. I'm going to say it was Metapedia.
Metapedia voted yes with 64.3. Chicoutimi voted yes with 68.9. So it was Chicoutimi. Joliette 63.9, Matane 62.5. So you miss that and you lose your lifeline. You have 1 lifeline left. Okay. So you're 2 for 3. Number 4, Eric. In which riding on the island of Montreal the yes side had the highest percentage points, the highest share of the vote? Now I will give you a multiple choice. Was it Mercier? Was it Hochelaga-Maisonneuve? Was it Pointe-aux-Trembles? Or Sainte-Marie-Saint-Jacques? Now, all of these are on the eastern half of the island of Montreal.
I'm not going to use the lifeline for this one, and I'm going to choose the easy one, which would be Pointe-aux-Trembles, because that's usually where the PQ does best on the island, so I'm going to say that one.
Pointe-aux-Trembles had voted yes by 60.9.
Wow.
And in my list, it's 3rd.
Ah.
Mercier was 2nd, 62.8. The winner is Hochelaga-Maisonneuve, 65.5, had the highest. Hochelag voted yes. It was the highest on the island of Montreal.
I don't think it would have that high result now.
No, it would not. No, it would not. Montreal has changed since 1995, let's just say. Okay, so you're 2 for 4. Yeah. You can still, get that silver.
50% plus 1 is all I got to do.
That's right. That's right. And you have 1 lifeline. Okay, now again, this is a multiple choice. Which of these ridings had the most lopsided results for either side?
Well,
I'm going to give you 4. Was it Westmount Saint Louis? Was it Saguenay? Was it Lac Saint-Jean? Or was it Darcy-McGee?
Well, it's going to definitely be West Island. And was it Westmount? I think it was probably Darcy-McGee. Darcy-McGee's always the one that's the most. I'll keep my lifeline for my... Actually, I'll take the... I'll use my lifeline here just to make sure I can make sure I get a bronze at least.
Okay, the lifeline, I'm removing the 2 lowest share, the highest. You have left Westmount Saint Louis or Darcy-McGee.
Darcy-McGee.
So, both the Saguenay and Lac Saint-Jean voted 73% for the yes side. Westmount Saint Louis voted 84.8, so almost 85. Darcy-McGee was the highest, the most lopsided, with 96.4%.
96.4%. What part of the island is Darcy-McGee?
It's just it's west and south of Saint Laurent. I'm not exactly sure what. I don't go there very often, but it's very Anglo and. Does
that riding still exist by that name?
Yes, it does. Okay. The borders have changed, but the riding still exists. Right. Okay.
And if anybody remembers, Darcy-McGee. A conservative, father of Confederation kind of person. And I think the last time we had a sitting politician, though, was assassinated. The Fenians took him out in 1868, if I'm not mistaken, in Ottawa. There's a plaque downtown.
Ooh, that's dark. I did not know that. Interesting. Okay. Well, on that note, so you have 3 out of 5. You've got bronze locked up. 1 question left, and you still have a lifeline. You can get silver on this. I think this is a tough one, though. I'm finishing hard. Okay. Which of these ridings, there are 4 of them, had the results closest to the final province-wide result? Which riding mirrored the final province-wide results? Was it Anjou? Was it Jean Talon in Quebec City? Was it Ungava, northern Quebec? Or was it Beauce-Nord? And you have a lifeline. And there are no more questions, so...
No, I used my lifeline. Oh, yeah, but I got it right. Okay, so I'll take the lifeline, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to remove the 2 furthest. It's either Anjou in Montreal or Jean Talon in Quebec City.
Oh, I would have thought Ungava. So it's either Beauce or Ungava?
No. Sorry. There's sorry. I remove Ungava and Beauce now. You have the choice between. Oh, sorry, I misspoke. You have the choice between Anjou and Jean Talon.
Oh, that's tough. I know that in Quebec City it was actually pretty close overall, but it was a slight majority. Yes, I think, but they were hoping for a bigger majority, if I'm not mistaken.
You are not mistaken on this.
Anjou. I'm going to say it was Anjou.
Anjou, the result was 49.5%.
Close?
For the yes side. And you are correct, my friend. It was the closest to the province-wide average. Jean Talon was 48.52. But Anjou, right, at the mix of francophone and anglophone and allophones in eastern Montreal was almost identical to the provincial result. So good for you. You get a silver on a tough quiz, I think. It's pretty tough.
I think so.
Good for you, my friend.
Thank you very much. And that is going to be on the 30th. If
that's
I'm
right.
not mistaken.
Thursday.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
We'll see a lot of coverage of that, particularly in Quebec. But 30 years, wow.
Yeah.
Let's get to number of the week. Let me go first. Mine's a simple one. It's going to be from that ECOS poll, just in terms of this question. Federal opposition parties should vote against the upcoming federal budget this fall, triggering a fall election. Support for this was 4% among Liberal voters. Now, if the question had been, should Mark Carney decide to send the country to an election, Liberal voters would have been more likely to say yes. But anyway, only 4% like the idea of an election. And
wow,
so that does kind of suggest to me that the Liberals do have the risk of some disappointment from their own voters if there's any hint at all that they wanted this to happen, if there is an election. Yeah. So they, if that's where they're kind of indifferent and they're just letting it happen and see what happens, there could be a bit of blowback if people feel like they didn't try hard enough to avoid this. So just a little bit of a warning shot, I think, for the good ship Carney.
Yeah, the blowback, left of center voters have a bigger blowback to a quick election call, that's for sure. My number of the week was from the Palace data poll. It had the beyond voting intentions, which was interesting.
Is that like a vegan voting intentions? That's a joke you're probably not going to get. Never mind.
You're right. I didn't get it.
That was a bad joke. I apologize to the listeners and the viewers. It was a joke related to Beyond Meat burgers.
Oh, God. Okay.
I should probably cut this.
Okay, so the Palace poll was actually on AI, and there's a lot of questions. I encourage you to go check out this report. It's on my website. But there was a question: do you view artificial intelligence as mostly a threat or mostly an opportunity to society? And 53% said equal parts a threat, equal part an opportunity. 24% said mostly a threat, and 17% mostly an opportunity. So even though we do not know all the dangers and the opportunities offered by AI, and we certainly don't know where AI will be in 5 years or even 10 years, the Canadians are not that afraid of AI. So go check it out. This poll is really interesting from Palace Data.
All right. Well, we're going to end that this episode on that, and
beyond this, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, beyond, we're going to take a break for this week, so no special episode coming up this week. But if you want to listen to our mailbag from last week, you can go to thenumberspod.ca, and we'll be back next week. It is budget day. We will be debating, depending on context, whether we push our episode to Wednesday or if we go on Tuesday as normal. If we have an idea of what's going to happen with the budget, we'll probably still go on Tuesday. If we don't, we might wait until Wednesday to see how the opposition parties react. Because if it is the opening salvo of an election campaign, maybe we want to wait and have that episode on that day. So until then, Philippe, have a great weekend. A safe and happy Halloween. I'm curious what you're dressing as. And we'll chat next week.
Merci beaucoup, Eric. Merci beaucoup, tout le monde. Have a great week. Bye-bye.